Okay, welcome back. This is Johnny the Greek's Free Real Estate. This week we got episode 17. I am joined with at IDP Evan, also known as the Young King. He is the host of the IDP Game Theory podcast. He's a contributor at Football Guys and the IDP Show. Evan, how's it going, man? Nice to have you here.
Man, it's going great. I'm so honored that you invited me on to chat and just, catch up, see how things are going. It's been a good, fun off season full of lots of football storylines. So I'm excited to chat about football, chat about life, and you know, see where we go with it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Things are picking up for sure. God, there were some stories today. Just trying to think what the I mean, there's so much stuff coming out of camps and stuff. Like I heard Traylon Burks is useless basically, like the first half of the season. Like I'm just listening to NFL radio to and from work, and then I'll hear these things. I'm like, oh, Jamal Adams hurt himself already. I'm just like, this is great. Like we're still 6 weeks away, and the shenanigans is already coming.
Oh yeah, it's been crazy. Or the whole Kyler Murray thing,
Oh,
now I'm just seeing
yeah,
now they just took it out of his contract, and I'm over here like, wow, was it ever in there in the first place? You see the
yeah.
Kyler Murray jersey back here on the wall behind me, so clearly I have a vested interest in this situation.
That's right. You're out in Arizona, so we'll definitely get into that. How you ended up being a Steelers fan, but let me just
Yeah.
get my disclaimer out of the way because I will probably end up swearing at some point. So let's all remember this may not be safe for work. If there are kids in the room, put on some headphones. With that being said, yeah, man. So what have you been getting into this off season? I know you ended up at Football Guys, so that's probably the biggest thing. But what else you been getting into in the off season?
Yeah, I would say like 85% of this off season has been non-fantasy related as far as all the things that have been going on, just life stuff. So I turned 23 exactly 1 month ago, and I bought a house with my sister this past off season. So it's been fun just kind of figuring out how to do adulting because, for a young guy like me, I've had not really had the opportunity to figure out how life after college really works. So, moving out, moving into a new place, trying to figure out how to be self-sufficient and a responsible contributor to society. It's been stressful and a good time. It's been a great learning experience, but as far as, actual football stuff goes, always listening to podcasts, always making sure I'm staying up to date on all the news and everything, just like anybody who cares about being a competitive fantasy football player would. So it's been a really good time just kind of being in the loop. And every year that you play fantasy, I think you kind of build on the previous season of knowledge and the things you've picked up. So
Yep.
for me, the timeline has been so short. Every offseason is really, really impactful as far as how much of an impact it has on me and how much I learned. So been learning a lot this offseason for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. And dude, I'm, pushing 39 here in a month and I still am not an adult. I'm just a man child in an adult's body. And that's Adam, that's Josh, that's Kyle. I mean, you see the group chats, like we're children.
Oh yeah.
So don't worry about it. It'll come.
Okay. That's good to know. Someday eventually, right?
Yeah, maybe. I'm still waiting on it. Oh, that's good stuff, man. And how are things? So you and Kyle and Joey and a bunch of the guys got a great offer over at Football Guys. How's that been going so far?
Yeah, man, it's exciting. Who would have thought that I would have been here? Not me. Definitely not me. It started out of the blue and it's picked up steam really quickly. I just sent in my article request for the things I'll be doing this upcoming season. So we'll chat about that a little bit later. I don't want to spoil too much early on, but it's been a really fun process seeing how they handle their article submissions and how they communicate with the staff and just what it's like being in that kind of an environment. It's really new for me. It's not something I've done before, obviously. So just being a fly on the wall almost, because I haven't done too much. I did a little bit of team preview stuff for the Falcons and for the Cardinals. But aside from that, it's really just been watching and learning and seeing how that process plays out so that when the time comes for me to do my thing, I know what to do and what to expect and how to go about doing that. So it's just been really cool. It's been a learning experience for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. And they certainly built a great team over there, so that's awesome. And the more the merrier, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially like with IDP, like for the most part, we all really like each other a lot, all the different sites and stuff, and we get along pretty good and we collab a lot. So, having a whole other new team like that is awesome. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, let's rewind a little bit. So let's start with the Super Bowl. So we were just talking about this before we hit record. You're a Steelers guy, and you mentioned, yeah, how weird is it that Steelers made the playoffs, Bengals made the playoffs, Ravens didn't, Browns didn't, and Bengals made the Super Bowl. And we're talking about Super Bowl, guesses or predictions at the end of this show here. Somewhat towards the middle. And what do we know? We don't know anything. We
Yeah.
So what did you enjoy the Super Bowl? Who did you want to win? Did you think that was going to go down like that? Thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and an interesting observation just about what we thought going into the season. I enjoyed the game. I thought it was really fun. It was a good break from what we've typically seen in the past, which is usually Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or something.
Yeah.
It was nice to see two teams, especially the Bengals, who haven't been there in so long, and a young guy like Joe Burrow. I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later into the episode, but I'm about as not Yinzer as it gets. So I'm not, watching the Bengals in the Super Bowl like, yeah, I can't believe Joe Burrow and the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. Like I want good football. I want good football to happen. I want people to stay healthy. I want the best team to win, and it was really fun to watch. I'm in hindsight watching it, it's interesting how the Bengals managed to do what they did, because they really did defy the odds. And by all accounts, their team is better going into this next season, and yet somehow I feel like they have a worse chance to
Mm,
make the Super Bowl.
yep.
And a lot of that has to do with the other teams also getting better, but it seems like it was such a fluke. But at the same time, that feels so disrespectful to say, because they earned their spot in the Super Bowl and they absolutely deserved it. So man, it's a great description or a great example of why football is such a high variance sport. It's difficult to
Right.
predict for that reason, and it's exciting to watch for that reason. Anybody could win on any given Sunday.
That's it, man. And it's so finite too. Like even with the extra game, so what? It's 17 instead of 16. Like every single one matters a whole bunch, and we never know what the hell's gonna happen. That Jags Bills game. I probably lost $100 that week just because I was like, this is a slam dunk. This is a defensive touchdown for the Bills, and this guy's gonna have this many yards and this, that, and the other. Didn't hit any of those bets in a 9-6 field goal game that the Bills lose at home.
Just madness. I'm very curious what went down in that locker room at halftime and after the game that led to that total collapse. But hey, at the end of the day, I mean, that's football. That's what happens.
That's it, man. That's why it's great because we really do never know. And I'm with you on the division rival thing too. I don't hate the Giants. I don't hate the Redskins. I don't hate the Eagles. In fact, I rooted for the Eagles against the Patriots. I rooted for the Giants against the Patriots. I'll root for anyone against the Patriots. My dislike for them is stronger than I'm supposed to hate my division rivals. I don't. I'm with you, man. Like there, it's just yeah. So we play them twice instead of once a season. Like okay. That's not enough of a reason like for you to hate Joe Burrow, I think. So
Mhm. Exactly. I think I don't want to get ahead of myself, because we'll kind of talk about this a little bit in a sec, but I'm not, man, I think I tweeted a thread about this a couple months ago, but I'm not like a big football guy, as weird as that sounds. Like I love football, but I love the storylines and I love the data analysis and I love the players. But like as far as from a strategy standpoint and from a history standpoint, like I'm just not that kind of a person. And I totally understand and I totally respect the people that have this burning passion inside them for their team. And they are that team's fan base and they are diehard. Like, go off, like, do your thing. I respect that. I appreciate it. That's so cool. Good for you. I'm glad that you have something that you can hold to that passionately. But for me, it's like, I'm just not that kind of a person. And so when it comes to rivalries like that, I'm like it, at the end of the day, this is a game. I'm happy that these people get to be paid lots of money to play a game, because I mean, what an amazing opportunity, what an amazing experience. If I could do that, I totally would. But at the end of the day, they're out there to play sport and I want to root them on, but I'm not going to hold negative emotions inside my body for athletes
right.
getting paid to do a thing. Like if you think about it at a meta standpoint, people waste their energy like physically hating people
Yes.
for playing a game
Right.
because they got drafted by somebody else's team. It's like I'm not going to be out here and being like, I despise Joe Burrow, I despise Lamar Jackson, because they didn't do anything to me. Like they don't even know who I am. They just got picked by that team. and then they did the best that they could to be successful at what they're being paid to do. I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And I see you got a ton of really good jerseys, cool jerseys behind you. I'm with you too. I got a closet full of random crap.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's like, if there's a tier, sure, the Cowboys are my favorite team, but I enjoy the heck out of the Rams. 99 Rams, last
Mm-hmm.
year's Rams, like they're a lot of fun. Chargers, that's a great team to
Oh
watch
yeah.
now. There's just so many talented teams. Kyler, we were just talking about Kyler before this. Like, how can you not appreciate those guys?
Absolutely. I almost bought a Justin Herbert jersey yesterday. I saw the NFL shop had some discount going. I was like, man, I gotta get a jersey, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. So I'll wait for a better discount, I guess. But man, yeah, the Chargers are such a fun team. Who'd have thought that the Chargers of all teams would be the team that everybody wants to be a fan of all of a sudden after like being a joke for so long and not having fans? Yeah, who'd have thought?
Right, absolutely, man, definitely. So yeah, let's rewind a little bit. So how did you get into football? Was this like a family thing, or how did it start for you?
Yeah. So no, not a family thing. None of the rest of my family cares about football one bit. So I've got 3 sisters, no brothers. My dad and my mom and all my sisters and I are all volleyball players. So that's something we'll get into also a little bit later. But nobody in my family really cares about football. And I tried to get into football when I was a lot younger. You'll see above my head the Tim Tebow jersey front and center. So when
Yeah,
he was on the Broncos, man, I was a big Tim Tebow guy back when I was like, 10 or 11 years old, because like, oh hey, it's cool, it's Tim Tebow. But I still never really watched any games. I didn't really know what was going on. And so I didn't actually really start caring about football until probably my freshman year of college back in like 2017. And yeah, and from that point on, that's when I first started playing fantasy, and I started really caring about what the players did and predicting the future and being successful at it. And I think fantasy is the reason why I care about football, not the other way around. I know some people are like, man, I'm a massive football fan. And hey, because I care so much about football, I'm going to play fantasy football so I can appreciate it even more. I'm over here like, man, I'm a really freaking competitive person and I want to beat everybody. And in order to beat everybody, I have to care about football. So I guess I'll care about football. That's the story pretty much.
I love that, man. That's true though. Fantasy just kind of turns it up to another level. And I was definitely the first one out of those examples for you. I always loved football, and then when fantasy came around, it was like, oh, this is great. Like now, if the Cowboys aren't on, or if it's like two terrible teams on like
Yeah.
Sunday night, I could still watch them because I got guys. But yeah, either way, they both enhance each other. So that's awesome. How did you end up on the Steelers?
Yeah, so that's a great transition question. So right when I first started playing fantasy football and started to care about fantasy football and real football, one of my good friends at the time was a Steelers fan. And so I was like, well, shoot, you like the Steelers. And, they had Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell and Juju and a really good defense. And it was like, man, this team is so cool. My friend roots for them. I might as well root for them because, basically everybody on their team was like the best in fantasy at the time. So was like, oh, hey, that's super cool. And obviously, fast forward to where we are now, no more Antonio Brown, no more Big Ben, no more Le'Veon Bell, no more Juju even. And so
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, why do I still care about the Steelers? And the truth is, Mike Tomlin is the reason I still care about the Steelers. That man is amazing. He could get me to run through a brick wall. I have a ton of respect for great coaching as somebody whose job is literally to be a coach. When you can lead other people, regardless of their background, regardless of their age, regardless of whatever other things in their life might impact their ability to perform at what they're supposed to do, when you can coach people in a way to be successful in spite of all of those differences, something about you is special. And to do it for 16 years without a single losing season and have the respect that people have for you, like that says something. And I've watched some interviews. He did a recent interview this offseason. I was just watching that thing just in awe of how great of a speaker he is and how great of a leader he is. And I was like, this is the Steelers right here. It was never about Big Ben. It was never about Antonio Brown or any of these other guys. It was about the ownership and the front office and the people behind the scenes that make the Steelers what the Steelers are.
Yep.
And man, I'm really drawn to that as somebody who cares about integrity and who cares about leadership and who cares about just being a respectable and a respectful person.
Yeah, they're one of the foundational teams of the NFL. They have, it's like them Cowboys, Packers, most away fans at every game, like
Yes.
that they
Yeah.
go to. Time between Tomlin and Cowher, that's over 30 years of just two coaches the last, whatever 30 plus years. It's just been two guys.
Mhm.
It look at who he coached. AB leaves the Steelers and all hell breaks loose, right?
Mhm.
He's cooking his feet in cryo freezers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but he's fine on the Steelers, and they've had plenty of personalities there. Yeah, Tomlin's been able to get through it all. Yeah, I got a ton of respect for that guy. I do. Anyone that sees my social media, I crap on the Steelers, but
Okay. Yeah.
it's just I'm just playing around. I don't actually hate the Steelers. I respect the hell out of Mike Tomlin and those like mid 2010 2015 teams with Palomalu and AB and Lev Bell and all those guys. Like, good God, man, there was so much talent on those teams. It was unreal, absolutely unreal.
Mhm. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that's how we got there. And yeah, okay. So what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I talked about it a little bit earlier. I wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of different things. When you're the kind of person that I am and have a lot of different interests and being the kind of person that likes to be the best that you can at whatever it is you do, I do a lot of things. So I am a strength coach. That's what I spend most of my time doing. I mostly train volleyball players, usually, you know, 10 to 18-year-olds at this volleyball gym that I work at. So my job is basically to be a strength and conditioning coach, help them be stronger, faster, healthier, and but also I think more importantly, but more underratedly, continue to have a passion for what they do. Because, like they say, you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach a man to fish and feed him for the rest of his life. I I don't want to necessarily have people just walk in and walk out and not have an interaction with them. I want people to know that I care about them and I want the best for them and that they can be in control of their success in their athletic endeavors. And so it's been really cool. I've been doing this for I think going on 6 years now, which is crazy. I didn't think I'd make it this far, but every single year I do this, I learn more. I have more of a passion for it. So it's really cool to see the impact that you can have on somebody's life from a physical standpoint simply by encouraging them and having them do specific movements and exercises and seeing them become stronger, seeing them become faster, seeing them hurt less and open up and smile more. It's crazy how much of a personality change you'll see in somebody when they are able to accomplish their goals pain free or just better and be more successful. So I've seen some kids come through when they were, 12 years old and graduate and go off and play Division 1 volleyball in college. And it's been like, wow, I'm so glad that I got to pour into that a little bit. And that person's going to go on and achieve their dreams simply because, they had the desire and the drive to go do that. And they had people around them that were willing to help make it happen. So that's one of the things I do. I also am a real estate agent. So, hey, free real estate. Am I right? um,
Hey, how about that market, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. And I'm only just getting my feet wet here. This is part of the reason why this off season has been so crazy because I just got my license, this past October. So I'm still learning how
Oh,
that all works. And
yeah.
so yeah, I'm, a strength coach and real estate agent. I do facilities management at the building here too. So I'm basically the handyman that fixes all the broken things. And, we'll see how much longer that keeps going because that's very time consuming, but it's a fun job for sure.
That's good, man. It's good to have lots of coals in the fire. It's good to have variety. Variety is the spice of life, right?
Amen. Amen. If we didn't have variety, then we would basically just be robots.
That's it. That's it. So you mentioned you were 23. Any you popping any kids out yet, or you got any pets you want to mention, or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely don't have any children, not that I know of anyways. Nah, man, I love dogs. I'm a dog guy. So my parents have a dog, my sister has a dog who I live with, and my other sister who lives nearby also has a dog. So I'm the funkle, I'm the fun uncle that takes care of all the dogs from time to time. And man, they're the best. I love dogs so much. So I can't really shout them out more than that, just that they exist and they have my heart. So
Beautiful. We'll take it. That
mhm.
sounds good. And okay, so you mentioned about 2017 for fantasy football. How did IDP start?
Yeah. It's kind of a random story. I think I saw somebody post something on an Instagram story that was like, "Hey, we've got a guy that's starting an IDP league, and he's never played before, and he's looking for other new managers. And I was like, I don't know what the heck IDP is. So I Googled it, and it was like, play with defensive players. And I was like, yeah, that's not for me. That's for like really crazy people. And one of my friends was like, hey man, did you see that story that about that IDP league? And I was like, yeah, man, that's for crazy people. Like, I would never do something like that. And he was like, man, I'm going to join. You should join too. And I was like, all right, sure, whatever. What the heck? So we all hopped in the league at about the same time. And it was like, all right, you guys, we're going to start the draft in like 30 minutes. So good luck. I was like, well, all right. So I locked myself in on my computer and made a bunch of spreadsheets and did as much research as somebody can do in 30 minutes. And, I thought I learned a lot, and I thought I really crushed that draft. And, I was fortunate enough to win the league that year, but not because I crushed the draft. It's because I continued to learn throughout the season, because I knew going in, if we're all on the same playing field, then the person that wins this thing is going to be the person that elevates himself above everyone else the fastest. Because I was like, okay, I gotta learn IDP. I gotta learn how to do research and how to set myself up and put myself in a position to acquire knowledge. Because if you go and you Google something and see what Google says, you have acquired information, but how you apply that and how you continue to learn is another thing entirely. So I think at the start of the league, I acquired some information that I thought was helpful, but throughout the process of playing in that league, I developed, or at least started to develop, the ability to acquire knowledge. And so that was 2 years ago. I've played 2 full seasons of IDP, and it still blows my mind that I'm where I am right now after only having played 2 seasons of IDP and like 5 seasons, not even 4 seasons of fantasy in total. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that makes people turned off to what I have to say. They're like, this guy has no experience. And hey,
No,
maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But
it's
it's,
it's
yeah.
not fucking rocket science, dude. How long did it take you to figure it out? Not long, right? It's like, oh, volume. It's the same shit on defense, right?
Yep.
Like if they play
Yep.
a lot and they're in position to make plays, they're good. End of story.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly. And so I kind of was like, okay, PFF is good. That's a good place to get your data. Some good podcasts to listen to. IDP guys, the at the time IDP show, or I guess at the time it was the Big 3 IDP show, but whatever.
right. Yeah.
I was like, okay, here are some people in the industry that clearly know more than I do. I should probably listen to them, see what they have to say, and see how I can apply that to be successful. And because I'm such an insanely competitive person, I wanted to absorb as much information as I could. And in doing so, accidentally became a content creator in the space. So who'd have thought, right? Not me.
Dude, IDP attracts these personalities where it's like no one does anything 0 or 1%. It's like
Yes,
all the way and then some, or not at all.
exactly. 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 It's so true. It's so strange, but it's so true.
Oh man. Well, I'm glad you made the jump, man. And no, I see that as a good thing because it's very kind of segmented, at least in Twitter. In real talk, Twitter doesn't matter. We know that.
Yeah.
It's all Google. I'm sure you see that at football guys. Like it's all Google that matters, not Twitter. But in Twitter, there's a bunch of really old farts. I'm probably one of them. And then we need the newer guys. We need the new blood. That's how it grows. That's how it gets to new people. Is not just hearing my same spiel every week. So it's good. I'm glad you guys are here.
Yeah. I think we'll probably break this down a little bit more later on the episode, but I think it is so important to have, yes, new faces in the space, but more importantly, new ideas in the space. This isn't a hot take by any means. I mean, this is one of the oldest things in the book, but think about SoundCloud rappers, for example, right? So it's a very strange analogy. I promise I'm getting somewhere. You are not going to impact anybody's life by being a SoundCloud rapper, especially if you're doing the same crap that everybody else is doing. So if you're going to jump into an already very, very populated space of content creation, you need to be doing something that's actually setting yourself apart and actually providing something to the industry. Because if I go on Twitter or I start a podcast and it's like, hey, here are some offensive players that I think you should start this week. Here are some offensive players that I think you should sit this week. Nobody's going to care.
Right.
I'm probably not even going to care because there are other people that say that stuff and they're smarter than me. And I'm probably just going to listen to them and plagiarize what they have to say. So if I'm actually going to be doing this and if I'm actually going to be providing something meaningful to the space, I need to think about what's lacking from the space. And so, like you mentioned, us as a community and as an IDP community, I should say, needing new blood. I agreed with that, but I was like, okay, but the new blood needs to be filling a void that doesn't currently exist. And so, again, we'll get into this a little bit later, but that is kind of the driving force behind why I do what I do in content creation.
Awesome, man. That's good stuff. Yes, we will absolutely dive into that. So, yeah, when you're not doing content creation, when you're not training people, what do you do otherwise? Other hobbies? You a video game guy? Movies? What do you do? What else you do?
Yeah, so man, I work so much. That's something I've come to the conclusion of recently because I've had so little time for hobbies. My hobby mostly being fantasy, but I play volleyball. I've been a volleyball player my whole life. Whenever I get the chance to play, I will. Also, I like to make some music. I haven't really made music in a while. I guess more so recently I've been doing some mashups and stuff. So, keep an eye out for that, I guess. But it's super cool because for most of my childhood I had to take piano lessons, and so I always hated piano lessons up until I stopped taking them, and then I was like, "Oh, hey, learning how music works is actually pretty cool." And it's also interesting because I've noticed I'm the kind of person that likes to understand things at a fundamental level. So whether that be fantasy football and game theory or music, I realized that, hey, music can be broken down into key signatures and all this good kind of stuff. And turns out, you know, you can put two songs together, play them at the same time, and it sounds pretty cool. And so it's a fun hobby of mine. It's never going to turn into anything major, but I don't intend for it to. It's just, fun because you hear two things and you're like, oh, like shoot, that's pretty cool. I'm going to save that for later. And so I also obviously do my training job. I don't necessarily call that a hobby, but it's something I enjoy doing. And when I'm
Yeah.
not getting paid for it, I'm doing it for fun, just training people. And in general, I just like, being somebody that can be available and serve others. So you kind of see that reflected in my work in the fantasy industry. You see that reflected in what I do at my job, but just being a kind of person that spends their time in a way that is in service of other people is what I at least attempt to do. I'm not always successful at it, but it's definitely something I aim to do.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, man. I was not like that the first 80% of my life, but when I finally got my act together and yeah, started doing stuff like that, service work, volunteering, like there's nothing like it. You're doing good just because it's good, right? That's it. That's all you're getting out of it. And that feeling is if people haven't done it themselves, they don't know. It's
Mm,
it's great. You're making a difference. You're making a difference in someone else's life. They're happier. You've fixed a problem. Whatever. Like there's no feeling like that. So that's awesome.
mhm. Yeah.
Okie dokie. So we're not going that far back, but that's okay. I guess the first draft class or the first couple of years. Who are your favorite guys? Favorite IDPs when you got into it?
Yeah, not too far back. So these should all be pretty fresh names in most of the listeners' minds. So I went back and I looked at that first year in that IDP league, and I looked at my team. So I mentioned I was fortunate enough to win the championship. So I was like, all right, who contributed to that? So you've got 2019 Devin White was a beast.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh yeah, so that was quite the blessing. But also, I think this is something that helped pivot. It was a pivotal part in why I believe what I do about IDP is I had Tyrell Adams and Cameron Curl off of waivers, and so
Yep.
Tyrell Adams, who I think at the time played for like the Texans or something, I don't even remember.
He did. Yeah, 2019. Yeah.
Yep. And we
Yep.
had Cameron Curl, seventh round pick, came in after Landon Collins got injured, and both those guys were putting up massive weeks for me and ended up carrying me to a championship. And that kind of taught me that I was like, okay, so you can spend excessively high draft capital on a guy like Devin White, or you can get guys off waivers that can also produce. Now, this was very, very new into IDP, Evan. So, I had a lot left to learn, but it was an interesting and eye-opening thing because I think you see that more often in IDP than you do in
Oh, in
offensive
offense?
fantasy for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. If Jonathan Taylor isn't showing up on waivers in offense,
Hmm.
he might in IDP though, or the IDP version of him might show up. That happens. Warm body linebackers. Ooh, baby. I never
Oh
draft
yeah,
linebacker. Why? Why would I? I'm gonna get
exactly.
some week 4. I'll be fine.
Yep. Exactly. I think part of the reason that is, and I don't want to get too philosophical here. We'll do that later in the episode too, for sure. But um, offense is so much more talent dependent.
Yep.
Obviously, there are positions on defense that are talent dependent. I would think, cornerback, defensive
Yeah.
line, safety,
Right.
but especially linebacker. that is like you said, warm body. If you're on the field, if you get volume, you'll produce. And that wasn't something I really learned until a little bit later on into my IDP career. But yeah, it's an eye-opening experience for sure.
Awesome, man. That's good stuff. Okay, who do you got? I'm sure you got some sleepers for this year. Who are some of your favorite guys? You could go IDP or offense, whatever you're feeling.
Yeah, so I'll talk IDP. That's kind of what I brainstormed ahead of time. So we'll talk draft strategy in a little bit, but basically every single IDP content creator, anybody who knows anything about IDP, loves to fade IDP because it's easier to find IDP value than it is to find offensive value. Because
Right.
if you believe you're a smart person, you believe you have an advantage over your league mates. And if you have an advantage over your league mates, that means you'll have a better job at finding value at IDP than they will. So I love to fade IDP. And because of that, I love late round sleepers because of this. So for defensive line, I'm going off of sleeper ADP mostly because that's the platform I primarily play on. But Marcus Golden seems like he has really late ADP on sleeper. We've done a couple of those IDP only best ball drafts, and he keeps slipping a lot later than I feel like he ought to. And he's really intriguing to me because, with Chandler Jones gone, and
Right.
I think it's Devon Kennard and Cameron Thomas and Myjai Sanders as the other guys competing opposite him. Like, I don't really see anybody that impressive. And he got good volume last year, so I expect him to have good volume this year. And that's not exactly going to set him apart. The volume, I'm not sure his talent is all that either. I'm sure he's probably about average. But the fact that he's going so late in drafts and seems like such a sure thing to have good volume in production, I like picking him up. He's not the latest of sleepers, but he just seems like a nice double. A good get on base.
Yeah, definitely, man. I like that. That's a good one. And there are a lot of those guys I've noticed. In
Yeah.
all these startups and best balls we're doing, like on the corner side of thing, it's like people forgot that Marcus Peters exists, J.C.
Yeah.
Horn, Jeff Okuda. Like I got those guys off waivers in a few leagues last week for like $1. And I'm like,
That's crazy.
like what? Like you're right. This is the time of the year where, especially if there was like an injury last year, or they haven't accounted for a free agency move or something. Like there are guys there, just people haven't like realized that yet, and that's a good one. I like that. That's
I
pretty good.
think I think that's why it's so important to be somebody that has a more wholesale, more nuanced view of IDP. Because I could sit here and be like, hey, this specific player is a sleeper. But just like I mentioned before, that's not really what it's about. It's about understanding the process of coming to that conclusion. Because, like you said, for whatever reason, your league mates are probably forgetting about someone or someone else. And it might not necessarily be Marcus Golden as the guy that they don't notice, but it's going to be somebody. And it would behoove you to develop the ability to figure out who that somebody is at a better rate than your league mates do. I actually have two more sleepers I want to bring up on the
Yeah,
IDP side.
fire
So for
away.
linebacker, I've got Christian Kirksey. I have an unholy high, whatever the wording is there. Too much exposure to him in these best ball drafts. But I just, there's value in ambiguity, and the Texans linebacker room has a lot of ambiguity between
Mm,
at least three people.
yep.
But I believe Christian Kirksey is the guy that we'll see start and probably wear the dot. I don't know for sure. I don't want to make false predictions. I didn't really look that up ahead of time. But I do also think that Kamu Grugier-Hill and Christian Harris are the guys that'll probably be competing for that other job. Maybe Kamu starts off the season. Maybe Christian Harris takes it over at some point. But I feel like Christian Kirksey is the guy that's set on that defense. Now, everybody hates him because he's injured all the time, but I'm not really the kind of manager that takes injury into account unless it's something like an ACL or an Achilles or a plantar fasciitis or something like that that has been statistically proven to have long-term effects. All you need to do is be healthy, and you're healthy. I know it's like the stupidest, simplest thing ever, but if I can get a guy that's going to put up big points if he's healthy, I'm going to get that guy every single time. And because of his ADP being just so freaking low, he seems like an absolute steal because when he's on the field, he's going to put up numbers that any given week could be the linebacker one on the week.
Right, right. And I think you got a good point there. It's the Texans linebacker room in particular. People are just scared of it. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, and that creates an opportunity. Yeah. So that's a good one. Who's your third guy?
Yeah. So I realized I actually wrote more than one more guy, but for safety, I love I love Julian Love, and the pun is absolutely intended. He's got really low ADP, not like the lowest ADP that I'll mention today, but you know, he's going to be the guy back there. Him and Xavier McKinney seem like the two set and forget safeties for the Giants. So it's not exactly the most big brain take, but he's going to get a lot more opportunity, and I think he'll probably get more of the box snaps as well. And if I can find a safety that I know is going to get the volume and has a good chance to get box snaps and has really, really, really late ADP, yeah, sign me up. And there are actually a couple other guys that fit that mold as well. Their ADP is like basically free. Now, their jobs might not be as secure because they might not be as talented, but you've got Anthony Harris in Philadelphia, Eric Harris in Atlanta, Eric Reed in Houston. They're all so late that they're practically free at the end of your drafts. But from the best that I can tell, and maybe I'm wrong, but from the best that I can tell, they seem to be the starting box safeties in all of those teams, and nobody's drafting them for whatever reason. So in a redraft league, I have also an insanely high exposure to those guys as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. No one knows the week 1 stuff. Like, sure, there's some guys we know for sure are going to be like the starter, play the majority of snaps, but week 1 is so hard to predict. Like the corner article I write, usually I put out 60, 70 guys that are options. I'll put out 40 week 1 because I know those 40 are going to play. Everything else I'm not touching because I don't want to be wrong and get yelled at on it. So I'll just give you those 40. And that's
Yeah.
across the entire league right now. You know what I mean? So take those shots, right? If you're wrong, whatever, we'll adjust. We'll have information by week 2. We can get guys off waivers and figure it out from there. But I'm with you on that. And I think with the Giants, with Julian Love, no one's looked at the implications yet. They're still kind of, their thought process hasn't caught up. Like, Logan Ryan's gone, Peppers is gone. Who else is there? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. That's a good list. I love that. Okay, speaking of lists, if you had 4 guys, Mount Rushmore, all-time IDP grades could be from any era, any time in history or now. Who would they be? You get 4 guys.
Yeah. So I figure you've probably gotten a lot of Luke Kuechly, probably a lot of JJ Watt, a lot of the same names. So what
Yep.
I did when I made this Mount Rushmore list is I basically said, from the 2 years that I've been playing IDP, which players have been like just the pinnacle, the best of the best. And so I've got Roquan Smith, Derwin James, TJ Watt, and Darius, now Shaquille Leonard, because it just seems like those, not specifically those 4 guys, but those seem like really great examples of just the top of the top IDPs. Everybody loves them. They have held their value, and they are actually like talented and good players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If that's the parameters you're going with, I cannot argue. That's a solid Mount Rushmore right there. That's good stuff. Okay, so stupid early prediction time, and we talked about this a little bit earlier on Twitter. You got a curveball for us, and I'm looking forward to it. My normal question is, if you had to go ahead and guess the 2022, 2023 ones for each position, starting with inside linebacker, who would you give me? What's your take on this?
Yeah. So the curveball is because, again, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of repeats on.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
now episode 17. My thought process here is really, really low ADP guys who I believe still have a chance to end the season as the one at their position, or at least a one at their position. I know I'm not trying to sound too crazy, so you guys can take it how you will. I combined defensive end and outside linebacker because I did, deal with it. But for inside linebacker 1, I put Cody Barton from the Seahawks.
Ooh.
Because I think we've gotten to the point of the season where it seems pretty locked in that he's going to be the every down linebacker 2 there. We already saw this with Jordan Brooks earlier, and the sheer number of defensive snap volume that the Seahawks have gotten in the past. It just seems like Cody Barton is the next guy up to benefit from that. So will he end the season as the linebacker 1? The odds are not in his favor, but the fact that he is still going as late as he's going, now his ADP is obviously climbing because people are smart and they learn things, but the fact that that's within his range of outcomes, I feel needs to be discussed more. Simply the fact that because he's a warm body linebacker and he has a secure role on a defense that's going to use him, that has to mean something. And so that's why I've mentioned him here for my inside linebacker.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good call. If he replicates Jordan Brooks last year, then oh my God, the value. So yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, who's your I guess outside linebacker, defensive end, edge guy? Your edge guy.
Yeah, so I chose Demarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. I know you love this guy, being a Cowboys fan, but
Ooh, we sure do.
man, he has been very productive. I know he started the season off pretty injured, but he ended the year so strong. And I'm not super intimidated by the other players around him. Now, I know the data is still out on whether or not the quality of your teammates impacts your fantasy production, but either way, I know he's very talented. I know he's going to get a lot of volume. And like I said earlier, I don't really care about injury. If you're healthy, you're healthy, and you will remain healthy until and unless you're injured. And, he's not suffering from one of those injuries that's going to persist. So if he suffers a new injury, so be it. But the fact that he's going as late as he is and has the upside that he has needs to be recognized. Now, he's obviously not a TJ Watt. Obviously, there are scheme differences that are going to limit him from, being somebody that we feel more confident in as being the number one. But like I said, I'm trying to throw a curveball, and I think Demarcus Lawrence is being massively underrated.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's yeah, you're right. It's just the injury kind of leftovers or effect or whatever you want to call it. People are a little gun shy and they just they're not remembering what he's capable of. So yeah, I love that. You got a defensive tackle for us?
Sure. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I don't usually play in defensive tackle cornerback leagues yet, simply because I'm so new to it. But I don't believe any other defensive tackle even has it within their range of outcomes to finish as defensive tackle one, unless Aaron Donald gets injured. But for the sake of the exercise,
Right.
I listed Christian Barmore from the Patriots
Ooh.
because he's going into year two, really talented player, going to get a lot of volume. What else do you need from a defensive tackle? I almost said Grady Jarrett, but I realized that his ADP is still surprisingly high. And I forgot who the Dolphins guy was. I was going to write him up too, but I think
Oh, Wilkins.
thank you, Wilkins.
Yeah.
Barmore, Wilkins, I like both of those players. It really depends on the ADP, but obviously Aaron Donald is going to be the number one for as long as he decides to be.
Yep.
But just somebody else to consider.
Yeah, your guy Hayward though, he's a DT in a lot of places, and Jesus Christ, the
Yeah.
sites where he's a DT, it is just. Last year, I had him and Donald as my two DTs in this Yahoo league. I couldn't
Oh,
believe it.
it's
Like
free real estate.
that's what I'm saying. That's free real estate right there. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Awesome. Love that. How about safety? This is like really this in corner the answer that no one can agree on. Everyone else, I get the same
Oh yeah.
answers.
Oh yeah. So I really went deep on this one. Now, those that know me know I love brisket. So I actually went with the Chicago Bears rookie safety Jaquan Brisker. I believe
Ooh.
he'll be taking over the Kari Willis role in that defense. And, you know, it's nearly impossible to predict who's going to be the safety one. So I figure, all right, if Jaquan Brisker has just a good shot to end as the safety one, as Buda Baker or somebody super expensive, might as well say Jaquan Brisker because he's so cheap and because I love brisket.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. And that's the thing. Defensive back is so hard to predict, and they're so plentiful and available. Like you should just no one should ever worry about defensive back,
Yep.
safety corner. You can always get them. They're always there, and I like that. What about Lewis? What is it? Scene? I still don't know how the hell to say it.
I call it Lewis Scene. Take it as
Yeah.
you will. I like him as well. The only thing that concerns me is their defensive scheme. I believe their new defensive coordinator in Minnesota is I don't remember for sure. Off the dome, I think they might run more too high. And so I worry about his tackle efficiency and his box snap percentage. I love him. I think he's either the safety 2 or safety 3 in this class as of right now. But I just like Jaquan Brisker more because I feel he has a more secure role in the box.
Love that. Yeah, box is important, and I just it blew my mind that there was pushback on that concept last year. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. If you're closer where the action is, you're more likely to be involved in the action and make a play. Like this is not a hard concept.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, and I don't want to come across the wrong way because this is not a brag. I'm so new to this, so there's so much I don't know. So whenever anybody shares any argument or any data, I'm going to eat it up. And so when a lot of people were talking about tackle efficiency in various defensive schemes, I know we can talk about Tom Kay and Macri, such great follows, but I'm going to look at that and I'm going to see that data. I'm going to be like, all right, this is now new information to me. And maybe I have that as an advantage to me because I haven't been doing this for very long. And people that have been doing this for so long have their preconceived notions. And it's really hard to change your mind. Maybe it's a lot easier to learn something than it is to unlearn something. And so, take that as you will.
Yeah, dude, that's true, man. There's been stuff floating around IDP land for like 20 years that I just cannot dislodge from my brain. Like, I still catch myself like having to, going into the argument, be like, well, this team's offense blows. They're going to be on defense a lot. That means they get more snaps. But then you look at the Seahawks last couple of years, like with a perfectly fine offense, just a better pace of play, and they lead the league in defensive snaps. And it's like, I really got to cut that out, but it's just so ingrained in me. It just comes flying out all the time. And there's lots of stuff like that. You mentioned another one earlier. The old, hey, if there's two great defensive ends, one on each side, do they help each other? Like that's another one. Like who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's tricky too because as humans, I think we have a natural tendency to try and rationalize the irrational, to try and find patterns. And so even if we come to the incorrect conclusions, we find comfort and we find safety in things that explain unexplainable
Right.
things. And so, as humans, we're just going to naturally come to the conclusion of, well, I guess this makes sense. So let's roll with it. And I think up until recently, we haven't really had the ability to disprove some of those preconceived notions. And so now that we have that ability, I've been fortunate enough, like I said, to just hop in at just the right time to be able to benefit from a lot of the really good research that's being done.
Absolutely, man. So, and I know you're not in a ton of CBDT leagues, but hopefully Sleeper will give us the option at some
Yes.
point, and hopefully we'll get you on some other sites too. But because that's the natural evolution. I started with DL, DB, LB. That was my first like 4 years or couple 2-3 years, and it's just our personalities. I think want more. Like that's why we're here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like normal fantasy was not enough. We got a taste and we're like, oh, give me more. I need more. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about the corners. Who do you think is going to be corner one?
Yeah. So I'm actually sticking with the same defense, the same thought process, and going off of why we saw success with this specific player, or at least this specific role last year. And I'm going with Kyler Gordon, also from the Bears, another rookie who is going to be taking over the nickel role for
The
that defense.
the Kenny Moore role, yeah,
Yes.
right.
So will he be as good at it as Kenny Moore is? I don't know, but I, did a little bit of Googling before this and he seems excited to play it, ready for the challenge, and seems like it's right up within his alley of, comfort level. So again, this is more of a value call than it is a, percent likelihood call. But like we said earlier, predicting success at defensive back is pretty impossible. So might as well follow the information that we do know and eliminate the uncertainties there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And yeah, I got him in a few dynasty like cornerback specific leagues, rookie drafts this year, and whew, very happy with that.
Oh
Cause
yeah.
yeah, if we even get 75-80% of Kenny Moore type, that's great. That's beautiful. I'll take it. Okay, and let's got a couple more predictions here. Let's get your Steelers prediction on record. How do you think the season goes? Who ends up being the quarterback, and how's it go for you?
Yeah. I'm very, very confident, at least up to this point, that Mitch Trubisky starts the season as the quarterback.
Yep.
Will Kenny Pickett get some play? Almost certainly, because if you draft a quarterback in the first round, you play them a little bit, unless their name is Jordan Love. But um, I have a really, really hard time seeing this team seriously struggle. I feel like my floor for them is like 6 wins. And even that seems just like an alternate reality where Mike Tomlin doesn't exist. My ceiling for them, though, is only going to be like 9 wins because the AFC is stacked. Their schedule is
Yeah.
so tough this year.
Yep.
And I mean, I have to be honest, as sucky as Big Ben was, he did contribute to wins simply because of his knowledge as a quarterback. And I don't really see them winning more than 9 games with the schedule that they have. I want to put that within the range of outcomes because if they win 9 games, they stay above 500, and got to keep that trend alive.
No doubt, man. And the thing is, they've got a defense and a run game, and those travel.
Yep.
And they got a great head coach that motivates the guys, and it's not his first rodeo. So
Hmm.
yeah, I can't see them having a total meltdown, even with a ridiculous. Well, depending on what happens with the Browns, ridiculous division.
Hmm.
Ravens and Bengals are still excellent in a loaded AFC. And who do the Steelers play for NFC division this year?
Oh shoot, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
not
have to
gonna be.
look at the schedule. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, no worries. We can circle back on that. Super Bowl prediction: who's going? Who's winning?
Yeah, so again, as with the theme of this episode, I've tried to be a little contrarian just so that the listeners get some variance to the takes that they're getting, because I'm sure you've gotten a lot of Buffalo Bills. But I actually went with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it's still relatively chalk, but the reason I went with that is I actually think their Tyreek Hill trade might have actually increased their odds, not in the way that you might think, but simply because it adds more to their offense. They become more multifaceted, and their defense has also become more multifaceted with the addition of more edge rushers, more safety talent. I think if you get rid of Dirty Dan Sorensen, you become better at safety by default. I think that they have more assets that they can do things with, and I think that good coaching staffs make use of just good assets. And so I think because they have more assets that they can do things with, and they've got a good coaching staff, and they've got one of the best quarterbacks in all of football, they have a chance to really go in there and surprise some people.
Yeah, no argument there. Whenever you got Mahomes, and you're right, there's less to focus on for opposing defenses. They signed Dunlap today too.
Yeah,
Yeah, NFC South. So Bucks not great. Saints, who knows? Panthers, that's probably a win. And Falcons, that's absolutely a win. So
I hope. I mean, that would be a very textbook Steelers loss. Let's be honest now.
Jesus. Yeah, so that's not terrible. Could be worse. For NFC division this year. But yeah, man, AFC is just such a goddamn bloodbath this year. So I hear you. Okay, so KC goes. Who goes from the NFC?
Hmm. I Interestingly enough, I'm going to take that same process and I'm going to apply it to the Packers. I think also becoming more multifaceted is going to help them. Now, they have done a significantly worse job at it than the Chiefs because they didn't really add anybody. And obviously Christian Watson and Romeo Dubs exist, but I am not going to put them on the same tier as Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Sky Moore.
Right. Right.
I think that's a respectable take. Hopefully, I don't get flamed for that. However, I think their defense is being severely underrated with the return of Jair Alexander, with the defensive investment that they made early on in the draft. I really expect this defense to be significant. And when you have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, you're going to find a way to score points. And so if their defense just keeps their opponents down, I think, with Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, maybe puts up 30 a game because he needs to because of the defense. But now with a better defense, maybe he only needs to put up 20 points a game. And I fully believe he's capable of doing that. He's a 2-time MVP, for God's sake. Like, respect this guy. It's not Devontae Adams. It's Aaron Rodgers for a reason. And if you look at how he's performed in games without Devontae Adams, he's still been successful. I understand I have an Aaron Rodgers jersey literally right behind me here, but it's because he's good at football. I respect the guy. So, take that for what you will.
Yeah, no, I could see it, man. That's half the battle is having a franchise quarterback that's capable of getting you there and winning it, and we know Rodgers can do that. And Rasul Douglas coming in last year, that was so huge. They're getting Jair back. They've got Rasul Douglas. No more Kevin King. He was garbage. Stokes looked pretty good. Devondre Campbell was a great addition. Rashawn Gary's finally grown up. Like, yeah, uh, they could run and play defense and let Rodgers throw every once in a while and probably be a-okay.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
All right. And then who wins if we get the State Farm Super Bowl? Who wins that?
Yeah, man, what a dream with State Farm Super Bowl. Um, that's tough. I'm still going with the Chiefs simply because I believe that they have enough offensive weapons that they could probably work around the defensive talent of the Packers. I think the Chiefs defense is probably better than the Packers offense, if that makes sense. I know the addition of Justin Reed and Man, I'm blanking on all the guys they added, but you just mentioned it earlier. New edge rushers, new safeties, even a new linebacker. Not that they even give a crap about linebacker, but
That's
I feel
true.
like their defense is equipped to handle the limited talent that the Packers have, at least at receiver. Now, running back, that's another story entirely. But
Yeah, right.
if
Yeah.
if a running back beats you, you can manage, especially if you have Patrick Mahomes and a bunch of offensive weapons at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a great Super Bowl. I'd be okay with that. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is a
Uh,
very 2021 take.
that's fine. I'll take it. I've heard Bills, Rams the last 7 weeks, so I'm fine with something else. All right, let's shift gears here. So, favorite all time movies? Give me, a couple, few, and then any TV shows you're watching currently, or favorite all time TV shows.
Yeah, so I'll start with the movies. I love Christopher Nolan. I'm sure you've probably gotten that a few times. Christopher Nolan movies are really, really good. For those of you listeners that might not be familiar with that director, that's Interstellar, Inception, The Prestige, The Dark Knight trilogy, Tenet, all really, really great movies that make you think. I like watching movies because they elicit emotions within you. And normally that emotion is a little bit of adrenaline because it's exciting, but it's a very rare experience when you watch a movie and are mentally challenged in a way that you legitimately have to think and pay attention and like understand what's going on. If a movie is interesting enough that I don't feel the urge to pick up and look at my phone every once in a while, I know it's a good movie. So I love Christopher Nolan movies. Obviously, big Marvel fan as well. I'm not as overwhelmed by the newer stuff ever since Endgame came out,
Mm,
which is
hmm.
understandable. It's difficult after something that big, but um, it's still entertaining to say the least. And for TV shows, oh, one other movie, Top Gun. If you guys haven't seen the new Top Gun movie, you are
Oh,
doing yourself a disservice.
so good, so
Yes,
good, so good.
so
And I
good.
and I'm like an aviation guy too. Like I'm going to an air show next month, and have been since I was a kid because both my grandparents were pilots in World War II. So I grew up learning all this stuff. That enemy jet, that's an Su-57. That's a real jet that Russia has, and it does exactly what they showed in the movie. It can stop on a dime at Mach 2 in midair, dodge a missile, come up behind you, and just kill you. That's absolutely true.
That is insane. Yeah, I wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid, but my mom told me I was too big to fit inside the cockpit, so I moved on to other things. Oh
Great
man.
movie, though, dude. Great
So good.
movie.
I
Yeah.
saw it for the second time this past week, and yep, still just as good as the first time. It was amazing.
No.
TV shows. So, Psych and Hawaii Five O. My family has watched those together for a very long time. They are pivotal in my childhood. I love those shows so much. As far as things that I've kind of dove into myself, The Office, so good, so good. You can tell a lot about a person based upon what they think about The Office. Some people are like, man, that show's really boring. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, I understand. I think less of you as a person now. Um, One other show that I have to shout out because of how underrated but amazing it is, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It's an animated show, so that means it's a kid's
Yes.
show, right? Wrong.
Mm-mm.
It's so good. It is
Yep.
so good. So anybody that loves Star Wars that hasn't seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars, put that on your list right now. Go and watch it. I don't care what you're
Re-
watching. Go and watch it right now.
Rebels was good too. I
Yeah,
watched all Rebels too. Yeah,
I did enjoy Rebels.
yeah, there was a lot of good info, a lot of good backstory in
Mhm.
both of those series. Yeah. Nice. All right. Good list there. Okay. If you hit the Powerball tomorrow, what are you doing? You gonna still physical train? You gonna still gonna have all the coals in the fire? Or are you moving to some paradise or something?
Yeah. So, being the boring and kind of practical person that I am, the first thing I would do is I'd talk to my financial advisor and figure out what exactly I got to do, taxes wise, probably investing it. That's probably what I would do in reality. In my imagination, where I'm a lot cooler, it'd be really fun to like buy a building, not necessarily something big, but maybe like a little recording studio and just kind of have something in the community for up and coming musicians or podcasters who are just kind of getting their feet wet. Be kind of cool. Like I've got my fancy little tiny office nook up here at my work, but it'd be cool if other people that are like, hey, I have a passion to do this thing, but I don't necessarily have the resources to go and pursue it. You know, it'd be cool that if they had a place that they could go and pursue that passion, because I feel like it'd be pretty cool to see people improve in that area.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. Yeah, that's a good answer. I hear you. I wouldn't change a lot either. But yeah, no, that's got to invest it, right? It's crazy times we live in. May as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could time travel to see anything in history, what would it be and why?
I love this question. I sat and I stared at my computer screen for like 5 minutes thinking about this, going through all these different historical events, like, would I do this? Would I do this? Like, would I want to see this? And then, of course, there's the nerd in me that's like, well, if I was there to experience it, like my presence there could alter the shape of reality and, whatever. So I kind of threw that out the window anyways. And I gave a kind of a different answer. I would probably travel back in time to just me when I was younger, so I
Ooh.
could, talk to myself and encourage myself and be like a positive influence in my life, because I think it would have been cool to have like a big brother type who's like somebody in your life who is there to encourage you and knows what it's like to experience the different things that you will experience later on in life, and kind of give you the encouragement and advice that you need. And I think this kind of plays into something I'll mention later on in the episode of just how important that is. So it's, a little bit of a different answer, but
Yeah.
I oftentimes when I'm coaching a lot of these kids at my job, I think, hey, I see a lot of myself in them, and what would I coach them? What advice would I give them that I wish I could have given myself instead? And what do I think they need to hear? And it's I think it's helpful and encouraging for them to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. I love that answer. Yeah, that's see, I've thought about that too. I've thought about like
Yeah,
because I had to go through a lot of dumb shit because I was an idiot, and it's like, do
we
would
all
I,
did, man. We all did.
would I go back and try and avoid all that, or did all that shape the person that came out the other end? And it's like,
Yeah, that's such a good point, though. It
what a
really is.
paradox, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, it's the latter one. You wouldn't be where you are today if you hadn't experienced what you experienced in your past. And so, generally, I would actually probably say, I wouldn't go back in time and change it. But theoretically speaking, it's still cool to think about.
Yeah, hey, it's an original answer. At this point in the series, I'll take any original answer. Trust me.
Awesome.
Looking forward to the start of the season. Okay, so are you an aliens guy or a no aliens guy?
Yeah, so I know there's a name for it. I don't remember what it's called, but there's essentially a philosophical and statistical argument that basically claims that aliens have to exist simply because of how vast the universe is, and statistically speaking, it's just likely that they do. But
Drake
being as
equation.
thank you, that's exactly what it is that I'm referring to. That being said, as much of a numbers nerd as I am, I don't really feel like it. I don't really think there are. I don't have any good reason to explain why. If I did, then it would be a popular reason that everybody's heard of. But I, I don't look up at the sky and think, man, I wonder when the things out there are going to come in contact with us. Cause I'm just like, I don't, I'm not, if somebody came with a really good argument or good evidence and was like, hey, have you considered this? Maybe aliens do exist. I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. This isn't exactly something I've had my internal debate with, but where I stand right now, I'm on the I don't really think so side of the things.
Yeah, I would just like to find out one way or the other before
Yeah,
it's all said and done.
it'd be nice to know.
Yeah. Okay. So, favorite football memory. I'm trying to think. Was 2017? That was a Steelers Super Bowl year, if I remember correctly. Was it?
Shoot, was it? Um,
It might not have been. When was the last one they won? Was against what? The Cardinals. The toe tap.
I think it was. Oh yeah, yeah. So they won against the Cardinals.
That was
Still
like
so
that.
funny.
Yeah, that was more than that was
Yeah, the last time they
way
were in the
before
Super
that.
Bowl was against the Packers when the Packers won. I think that was like
Right.
40
That was like
something.
2012 or 11 or
Yeah.
13, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite football memory is a Super Bowl memory though, but it's very different than what you might think. I was talking to the guys about this over in Bowling Green when I got to visit, but I was actually in the Super Bowl 49 halftime show with Katy Perry.
What?
Yeah, so this was Seahawks versus Patriots. This was the goal line Malcolm Butler interception game. But at the time, I think I was like a sophomore or junior in high school. And so what the guys did in Pepsi when they were trying to get people out for the Super Bowl halftime show to do stuff is they went to local high schools. And they basically were like, hey, you got any kids that were in marching band and know how to do all this kind of crap? So my high school band was like, hey, anybody want to be in the halftime show? And I was like, hi, yeah, me. I would like to be in the halftime show, please. Thank you. And so, yeah, I was one of those big glowing orbs things at the beginning that made the Pepsi logo. I stood in my spot, held my ball up in the air for about a minute, and then I ran into the tunnel, and you would not see me again for the rest of the halftime show. I ran around the entire building, out into the parking lot, and missed the rest of the game. But it was pretty fun, nevertheless.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So, okay, so you got to see Katy Perry bust in on that giant freaking cat thing or whatever it was?
Yeah, that was something. That was I was 1 year away from being in a Coldplay halftime show. That's all I have to say. Man, I love Coldplay. That Katy Perry halftime show was unfortunate to say the least, but it was still a pretty cool experience. It's a cool story that you get to tell for sure.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Love that. Okay, so that's a great football memory. How about like a Steelers or like favorite Steelers memory? And since you've been a
Hmm.
fan.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think the game they played against the Ravens at the end of last season was pretty cool.
Ooh,
I didn't
yeah.
get to watch the whole game, so that I don't think I can put that at the top of the list. Man, the last couple of seasons with the Steelers has not been full of very many good
Yeah.
memories. I'm not gonna lie. I think the Duck Hodges Chargers game was pretty cool because that season was absolutely miserable, and the fact that our like third string quarterback could come in and win a game was a very fun experience to say the least. So I think that's what I'm gonna go with. Duck Hodge, Devlin Hodge. Man, I will never forget that guy.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I love that. And it's too bad you're not a football history guy because Jesus, the Steelers are just like draped in that stuff. It's
Yeah, for real.
unreal how much like history and they're at the top. It's them and the Patriots, a six apiece, and everyone else is in second place.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's kind of funny how I ended up here because we were talking about that earlier. How are you in Arizona and a Steelers fan? Because
Yeah.
one of my first Super Bowl memories was that Cardinals Steelers Super Bowl and the 99-yard pick six and Larry Fitzgerald and James Harrison and like, oh my gosh, what a crazy game. So I hated the Steelers after that for so long. But like I said earlier, I just didn't really care about football. And so it kind of got to the point where it's like, well, I'm just going to pick, I'm going to pick a team. And that's how I picked the Steelers because I didn't really give a crap. And so if that's not a reflection of how little I care about all the rivalries and all that good kind of stuff, then I don't know what is.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. All right. How about favorite non-football memory?
Yeah. This one's kind of recent. I got to go to Hawaii with my sisters. It's not some, big crazy story, but it was just interesting as somebody who works a lot and doesn't get the opportunity to travel very much and isn't the most outdoorsy person. Like I don't necessarily think about going hiking as some really cool life-changing event, but I could very clearly draw an inflection point of my before the Hawaii trip and after the Hawaii trip. And it's just I value time spent with family a lot, and so getting to spend time with my sisters in Hawaii and getting to experience just the sheer overwhelming awesome power of how beautiful it is there and being able to, go hiking and think I'm going to fall off the side of a mountain and die and then, see something as just overwhelming as the views of what you can see on the top of a mountain or the food that you get to eat when you're there. It was good to be away, good to be out of the flow of everyday life because
Yeah.
it's a good way to kind of reflect and have some perspective. And I think it's so important that, we don't become robots. Like you said, if we do the same thing every single day, we're going to continue to stay the same as we are. And I think it's important to get a little bit of time to step away and reflect. And so that was really, really powerful and a cool experience.
Yeah, that's a good place to do it, man. It gotta be beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. How about is there I mean, I know you're a younger guy, but I gotta assume that there's something hard you've had to overcome at some point, and what'd you learn from it?
Yeah. Again, I wanted to take an interesting spin on this because I think there are a lot of really cool and really respectable stories about people going up and facing adversity and overcoming adversity. And as good and as impressive and as admirable as that is, I think as a society we've kind of overrated the narrative of individual overcoming all the odds on their own, because I believe that it's really, really important that we have a strong community of people around us that support us and are there for us when we do face adversity. And so I
Yeah.
think one of my most important stories in regards to this is just, when I first went off to college, it was probably one of the first times in my life that I was truly isolated and didn't really have a community. And I suffered a lot. I struggled a lot, failed a lot. And when I went back and found a community and made an effort to have people around me that care about me and are there for me and I'm there for them, I immediately noticed a difference. And so that's kind of something that I've been prioritizing lately in my life is, we aren't meant to live our life alone. And so
Right.
overcoming adversity is important, but it's so much easier to do when you have a community around you that's there for you and supports you. And so, I've been very fortunate to have that in my life. I know a lot of people don't, but I think that's probably been the most important lessons as far as overcoming adversity in my life.
Yeah, man, it takes a village, right?
It does.
That's awesome. Okay, so I've had this question in here for like 2 months now. Sorry, Z Mags, it's going bye bye. So I don't want to know what your last words would be if you were going to go out in a blaze of glory. No one's had a good answer for that. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
today, surprise question I just came up with literally 2 hours ago.
All
Would
right.
you rather get sacked by, take your pick, Aaron Donald, T.J. Watt, once a week for a year, or have to remove 10 angry chickens from your car every time you go to use it, also for a year?
Mm.
Pick one, defend your choice.
Okay. Um, well, I know for sure I'm getting sacked. There's no way I'm able to evade that. There's no chance of me escaping that. So it's imminent, imminent, full on collision with some of the most violent and aggressive defensive players in the NFL, even with pads on,
Yeah.
or a minor inconvenience every time I drive my car. Now, I
Well,
drive
well,
my car a lot.
well, they're angry chickens. So
They are
you,
all chickens are angry. There is no such
right.
thing as a non-angry chicken. Yeah, yeah. So, am I going to get pecked? Yes, I will probably be bleeding by the time I hop into the driver's seat. Chickens are kind of scary. They're kind of gross too. Um, but I will be alive, and that is what
True.
matters. Because if I get sacked once a week by an by an NFL defensive end, like no amount of preparation is going to keep me alive. I'm going to die. I'm going to break my spine. I'm going to impale my lungs with my ribs. I'm going to, I'm going to pop. Whatever you need, every individual contact will basically kill me. And the fact that I have to get hit like 52 times, I'm not surviving that. Most quarterbacks wouldn't survive that.
I love that. That's triage. You're triaging that right there. You're like, it's, well, and survival's important, so let's go with the
Yeah.
chickens.
Yeah. I would like to stay alive. It will be miserable, but it will be alive.
Beautiful. That's a great first answer to that question. All right, we're gonna move on to the hot water
Oh yeah.
section. Yeah. So let's start with your typical approach when you're drafting your IDP defense. Are you a fade? I mean, we talked about this a little bit already, but fade linebackers, fade defensive line, blah blah blah. How do you usually do it? All things being even.
Yeah. So I think a good quote unquote all things being even approach is some of those IDP only best ball drafts that I've done where you don't get the opportunity to fade IDP because they're the only option. And so what I've tried to do to relative levels, varied levels of success in these drafts is take edge first, then linebacker, then safety. Now, I successfully in one draft managed to pull off the perfect draft where I drafted all of my edges and then all of my linebackers and all of my safeties. Obviously you should take some more nuance than that into your drafts. But I think the reason why I do this is more importantly is it's explaining my thought process behind it. Now, my goal would be in the future, I'm able to do some more complex data analysis as far as ADP relative to production. But I believe the highest correlation between ADP and end of season result is edge rusher. Now, this is not something I've statistically verified. It's something that I believe on a theoretical basis. So we'll see if that ends up being true. But I believe that edge rusher is one of those positions that talent correlates to success. And I think that ADP is also pretty highly correlated to talent. So if I'm going to invest higher ADP or my earlier draft picks into a player, I'm going to invest those draft picks in talented edge rushers, because I believe that is where that draft capital will more beneficially pay off. Now, linebackers, I've kind of adopted this new thing this past offseason that, like, it's the Denzel Perryman thought process is anybody can be the linebacker one. All you need to do is be healthy the entire season and get volume. And
Right.
so my goal is to acquire very, very inexpensive linebackers that I believe either have a secure or have a decent chance to have a secure 3-down role with their team. And I believe that the place to get those guys tends to be in the middle area. So I have a very high exposure to all of the guys in Houston. I've got a very high exposure to all of the guys not named Deion Jones in Atlanta. I've got a very high exposure to Dre Greenlaw. I've got a high exposure to
Shaq Thompson.
yeah, there's a good one. And so I'm looking primarily at defenses that run 2 linebacker personnels at the highest rate in the league, because that increases my odds of hitting on somebody. Because if I get Shaq Thompson, like, good, he's obviously the starter. But if I'm drafting somebody who I don't know is a starter, like if I'm drafting a Kamu Grugier-Hill or a Christian Harris, either guy could be injured, and the third player would automatically be catapulted into a starting position. Like if
Right.
Dre Greenlaw or if Fred Warner get injured, Aziz Al-Shaair is going to be the guy that gets the 3-down work. Now, if I do the same thing for, let's say, the Chargers, if I try and take a shot at their number 3, like, that guy is not going to get a 3-down workload unless the 2 guys ahead of him get injured, simply because they run one linebacker on the vast majority of their snaps. So, like I said, I have a high exposure to San Francisco, to Atlanta, to Houston, to Jacksonville, but not really, because their top 2 guys are really expensive. But theoretically
Yeah.
speaking, they run 2
Right.
linebackers a lot.
Yep.
Same with Tampa Bay. Their number 3, whose name escapes me, would be maybe a good late investment. But yeah, I think I've kind of exhausted that thought process of, especially in a best ball draft when I don't need to figure out when to start them. Now, for safety at the end of draft, I kind of mentioned this earlier. Just like I said with linebackers, anybody could be the linebacker one, and it's even harder to predict success at defensive back.
Yep.
So my goal is take shots at a lot of defensive backs that have a chance to see a high number of box snaps, because if you have more box snaps, you have a greater chance to have a spike week. And if I'm just trying to get players that I can put in my lineup and increase my odds of getting a spike week, I'm going to do that. So the guys I mentioned earlier, Julian Love, Eric Harris, Eric Reed, and there's one other guy who I forgot. Alex Harris or whatever his name is. I don't know.
Oh, God. Eagles guy.
Yeah, Anthony Harris. There we go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
those guys are guys that I've been targeting a lot, simply because they're basically free. I expect them to get a lot of box snaps, or just like really, really cheap nickel corners. So
Right.
obviously, we mentioned Kyler Gordon earlier. I've been getting a lot of the nickel in Philadelphia, whose name escapes me all of a sudden, because of course it does. I need
But
to
it's best ball. You can go corners there. It's
exactly.
it's DB position, right? Like sure, Marcus Peters is not going to blow up every week, but when he blows up, it's usually because he did something ridiculous, like a pick 6 or something like that. And in best ball, that's fine. That I'll take that once a month or once every other
Yeah,
month or something.
Avonte Maddox is the guy I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, just get guys that could have a spike week, and see how it goes. But in general, I don't like investing a lot of capital into defensive backs. Now, that's a draft strategy. Obviously, things are different when you're in season and you can make trades. I will generally try to trade away IDPs for offensive players, because
Yep.
I believe that I have an advantage over my league mates, yada, yada, yada. We kind of talked about that earlier. But I'll try and get upgrades wherever I can. It's a lot about asset management and understanding the trajectory of player value, and trying to figure out who is set to increase in value soon, who's set to decrease in value soon, and understanding your buy sell windows. But that is a whole other can of worms that we don't need to get into.
Yeah, relationships too.
Yeah.
That kind of gets thrown under the bus sometimes. But I will take trades that aren't gonna like seismically shift my team just to help someone else out, just so they're in my back pocket when I need something.
Yep.
Before the playoff push or whatever. Keep that good relationship going so that I did that with Joey last year to make a push in a league I won. I was like, Joey, you just barely made playoffs. You're not winning it. I have a chance. I did you a salad on this like a month ago. Hook me up. You know,
Yeah.
give me these guys. Let's make it happen. He's like, all right, fine, let's do it. All right. So,
I love it. Very good Joey impersonation.
yeah, there's an art. There's an art to all this. And your game theory podcast and now IDP game theory podcast is a great place to hear all that, by the way. There's a little free advertisement for you.
Appreciate it very much. Very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I already know the answer, but favorite platform and why?
Yeah, so it's Sleeper. Now, that's a little bit of a normie approach, obviously. I guess the most normie approach would be ESPN. I love Sleeper
Oh,
because
ESPN. Ugh.
yeah. Their goal is not to, generate ad revenue or convince you to subscribe to some sort of subscription service, whether that be ESPN Plus or Yahoo Plus or NFL Plus, whatever. I'm not getting shoved with ads and I'm not being coerced into subscribing to something. Now, I don't like them because of that. I think that is more of a reflection of the intentions of the development team. I think the development team has it to be their goal to be the number one platform, and they are listening to the community and adding features that the community is asking for. And even if their functionality isn't quite at the level that MFL is at, or perhaps other platforms that can do a couple more things, I fully expect it to be there at some point as soon as they, add it into the game. Now, I think something that's a little less appreciated, especially by people that have been playing fantasy for a bit longer, is just the user interface. I think Sleeper's user interface and just how easy it is to access all the different features of the platform just makes it easier than any other platform that I've played on. Now, there are some people, that play on MFL and don't give a crap how ugly it is because they know how it works and they do it. They've had their flip phone since, early 2000s, and they don't need an iPhone because their flip phone calls the people it needs to call. And, I respect it and I understand it, but I respectfully disagree. I think user interface is a very important aspect of a platform because it also helps you do things more efficiently, absorb information more quickly. And when you're like me and a degenerate that's in as many leagues as I'm in, I don't want to spend 5 hours setting my waiver claims every day. I want to spend 1 hour spending. Well, I don't really want to spend any time, but I want what I'm doing to be more enjoyable and more efficient and less stressful. And I'm more stressed out when I'm playing on a platform that has a less user-friendly interface.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts on this. That's okay though. So you're right. MFL. I actually just got transferred commish powers this week for this league I'm setting up. And Jesus H Christ,
Yeah,
I have no idea how to do anything. And it took like a good year just to figure out how to play as a player. Now the commish side of things, it's like holy Christ. I don't know. So yes, they have some work to do.
yeah,
I would be way happier with Sleeper when they just graduate to including corners and defensive tackles, and
totally.
that's it. That's the people have been asking for that for years. Once they do that, then that puts them in a different level, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm not going to, stand here on a hill and be like Sleeper is the best platform for X reason and negate their other priorities than me. I think that would be pretty foolish of me to have that stance. So I could not agree more. I think if you are somebody that cares more about the competitive experience of having more positions, which is, a very, very, very large portion of the IDP community, then Sleeper is not the platform for you because it simply can't do that. And I understand that. And so I think it's important to take that into account and, keep asking them because it's clear that their dev team is listening and making changes. It's just a matter of time, I think.
Yeah, no doubt, man. To each their own. Okay, so let's start here. When did you join Twitter? How long have you been on that wonderful site?
Too long. That's the short answer. The long answer is I joined it, I think, at the end of my senior year in high school. I don't know. We did some sort of like water gun assassins kind of thing. And so I had to be on Twitter for that. But it has slowly but surely been eating away at my life ever since. I used to have like 10 Twitter accounts. I kid you not. It
Oh,
was,
what?
yeah, I'm not going to get into it. I deleted them all. But um, as for fantasy Twitter, I have been doing fantasy Twitter for about 2 years now. I think for as long as I have been playing fantasy and been on Twitter, I've been on fantasy Twitter. Now I haven't like contributed anything meaningful to the space until a year ago, or at least I would like to think. I would like to think that I've contributed something meaningful to the space. I'm sure everybody that's on Twitter would like to think that as they're shouting into the void, but um, but yeah, no. So I've been on Twitter for a short-ish period of time, but I guess it kind of depends on your perspective of time.
Well,
But
yeah. What's
yeah,
what's what's your take of the wonderful place we find ourselves in, where with just all the crap you see
yeah,
daily? I
yeah.
mean, what do you think?
How many times, I'm curious, how many times have you heard people use the phrase double-edged sword in regards to Twitter?
Oh yeah, nearly every interview here, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I kind of thought so. I was writing that down. I was like, I bet everybody said that because it's true. It's a tool that can be used, to your advantage, but it's also something that can, drain all of your energy. And so I've
yep,
had to take steps to make sure that that doesn't happen to me like it did in the past. And I think my solution to that, to anybody who's made it this far in the episode, don't be afraid to mute people.
yes,
Unfollowing people seems kind of scary and rude, especially if you're the kind of person that's like, well, if I unfollow them, then they're going to unfollow me, and I can't have that hurting my follower count. Mute people. And so, my first step was muting people that just like tweeted like inappropriate things, obscene things. Like, obviously, that's the first step. I don't want that showing up in my timeline. And then after that, I started muting people that just tweeted about things that I didn't believe were worth me reading. And I don't want to, be offensive because, people tweet things and they think that what they have to say is meaningful. And there are people that, would appreciate what they have to say. But if I'm going to go on Twitter, it needs to be for a purpose.
right.
Because if I allow Twitter to decide what I'm going to do today, it's not going to be a good day. But if I
Eh,
go into Twitter with a decision about what I would like to learn about it, then I want to make sure that I'm catering my feed towards that. And so I have to mute accounts that aren't providing information geared towards that goal. Now, all that being said, and it's a very long-winded answer, I don't believe there is a better tool than Twitter for getting up-to-date information as quickly as possible. Adam
right.
Schefter, Ian
Breaking news
Rappaport,
stuff. Yeah.
breaking news,
Yep.
exactly.
Right.
Um, my mind was blown this past week. I followed the 32 Beats account on Twitter, and holy smokes, my life has never been the same. It's an account that tweets all of the things from training camp. I might even ask you to delete this part because I don't want my league mates to know about it. But you
Oh,
don't
dude,
actually
there's
delete it.
there's
But
there's tons of stuff. Just do a
yeah,
list search for beat writers for different
yeah,
NFL teams. I followed all of them. It's
it's
great.
so good. It
Yeah.
is so good. So it is a very powerful tool, like I said,
Yep.
and you need to wield it carefully, or you will stab yourself with it very, very easily.
That's true, man. That's true. And you're a very, very nice person. You have not been like jaded by any of this yet. I could give a shit. Like
Yeah,
I've been here long enough. I've put enough stuff out. I could really give a shit who I piss off and what I say anymore. I don't care. But you are very nice about it. You're right though. Don't be afraid to mute. No one even knows that they've been muted. There are people out there right now shouting into the void, and no one even sees what they're saying, and they don't need to know.
yeah. Exactly. And it's not even necessarily that they don't have something worthwhile to say. Now, that is the case with a lot of people, but sometimes it's like, hey, I appreciate what you have to say, but I just don't think, I follow way too many people. I follow people back that I believe deserve to be followed,
Right.
but I can't keep up with 900 something different people tweeting. And, while you might have something worthwhile to say, it might not be as worthwhile or as relevant to my specific goals at the time as somebody else's. And so, unfortunately, it needs to be on the chopping block. So, maybe some people will hear that and be like, that seems kind of insensitive, but just know it's not personal. I just don't think you have something worthwhile for me to listen to. That
Dude,
sounds so mean.
no, I'm with you, man. Like I saw two little things today that snuck through out of the beat writer stuff. A Devon Godshow contract in New England, which was like, oh, that's great. That's my DT3 somewhere. I'm like, that's good. Glad I saw that. And then a Jets beat writer that confirmed Quincy Williams is the other starting linebacker right now because they signed Quan Alexander today, and
Oh,
I
interesting.
I nearly shit my pants when I saw that. I was like, oh boy, this isn't good. But then he's like, no, don't worry. It's still CJ and Quincy. Quan's just going to be this, like the Sam. And if one of them gets hurt, he'll step in. And I was like, oh, that's great information. If I
That's
had
actually
not,
really important. Wow.
you know what I mean? If I had not seen those things because someone wants to like ask, what combination of coffee and cream are you having this morning in their stupid freaking engagement tweet,
Yeah.
I would not have been happy. So yeah, my mute button gets quite the workout, no doubt.
Yeah. That's actually that I feel like that merits at least 30 seconds of discussion. Quincy Williams has
Yeah.
defensive back eligibility on Sleeper.
Yeah.
He should instantly be in contention for DB1 simply because he's actually a linebacker. And if his ADP is low in your drafts, or if his manager does not realize that his role is as secure as it apparently is, that's a buy right there.
Oh, dude, no doubt. Those cheat code guys are they've always been important. They've always been huge, but the last 2 years with Corona and the extra game now and the 68% injury rate last year,
Oh yeah.
those guys are worth their weight in gold cuz you can do things with them you can't do with anyone else. You can move them around, use them on bye weeks, plug holes, survive, advance.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, so what are you working on this season? Any upcoming projects rest of the off season? And then what are you doing this season? Do you have like a weekly article you're doing for Football Guys, for IDP show? Like, what are you getting into?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start off with the IDP show kind of things. I believe I'll be doing that every other week preview that I did for last season. That was so much fun. I think that probably taught me more than anything else has recently, simply because that, it really put me into the fire and forced me to do research and hold takes firmly. And I was honestly shocked at the success that I had. I didn't actually think that I'd be able to predict that consistently. But I was pretty shocked and obviously very appreciative of the feedback that I got from people that listened and followed my advice, and it helped them out. So that was pretty cool. I'm excited to do that again, and I think I will be able to do it at a even more successful rate this year because of what I plan to do with my podcast and my articles at Football Guys. So for anybody that's familiar with JJ Zacharyson, in season, he has his 10 trends for week whatever of the NFL season. And so I plan on doing something similar to that, but for the IDP side of things. So I'm
Ooh.
hoping to drop it on a Monday night, Tuesday morning kind of thing. So managers can listen to the podcast or read the article before they set their waivers that day, but basically cover 10 statistical trends that I believe are significant for that week of football, whether that be a player's usage or an injury and somebody came in and filled in for them, or something sort of like a tackle efficiency metric where somebody had a spike week that we shouldn't expect to be indicative of future success. Whatever it is, I'm planning on pouring over every single game, finding 10 things that I believe are significant that managers ought to know, getting out to them very, very quickly, and most importantly, in a manner that is easy to digest, in an episode length that's only going to be 15 to 20 minutes long max, that you can listen to on your morning commute, or just cram really quick, the night of, because you forgot to listen to it earlier and you got 1 hour before waivers clear and you need to get your information somehow. So my goal is to basically just be the source for people that want to know what happened in the past week of IDP and want to know it right now really, really quickly and in an easy to understand way.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. Yeah, we need as much of that stuff as possible on the IDP side because offense is just overflowing with that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot for IDP, so that's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm hoping that by making it easier to digest the information, people will realize how easy the information is to come by. Because, I mean, like I said, you can give a man a fish to feed him for a day, or you can teach a man to fish, feed him for the rest of his life. My goal with all of this is to help people realize that they don't need me at all. And maybe that's not the right mindset to take into being a content creator for IDP or for fantasy in general. But, if people realize that I'm just a guy, there's nothing special about me. I just happen to think about a way to do something and follow through with it. Like there's nothing special about me. I'm just a guy, and you could do the very thing that I'm doing if you simply put forth the effort to learn. And yeah, that's my thought on it.
I love that, man. That's true. That's true. None of this is super duper complicated. It's just putting in the effort, and I mean, this is America, so
Yeah.
we're always going to have an audience,
Yeah.
because the implication behind that statement is some people aren't going to put in the effort, and that be
Correct.
true.
Correct. And for as long as that audience exists and for long as I have the mental capacity to put up with them, I will continue to help them out as best as I can.
Love that. Beautiful. And yeah, that's awesome, man. Good stuff. Okay, so that's what you got going on. And then is this on top of the game theory?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I didn't explain this very well. I'm rebranding the podcast. So last season was the Big Game Theory podcast. I did a couple episodes, like 12 or 13 episodes, about objective, evergreen fantasy football game theory. And so I just gave tips that apply to any kind of fantasy football that you play, that you can listen to those episodes at any time and learn something that should hopefully make you better. Now, the hard part about doing evergreen game theory topics is there's only so much you can talk about before you've talked about everything. And I realized that about halfway through the season when I was like, okay, next podcast topic. Waivers, I guess. So it's difficult. But I wanted to find something that I could do a little bit more consistently for the listeners, because I don't want to give them a half-baked podcast. I think they deserve better than that. And if I'm going to invest time into something, I want it to be something better. And so I went into this off season with the mindset of what I do next season needs to be something I can do consistently every single week. I want to be able to use the information that has happened that week and give the listeners a product based upon that information that they can use as actionable information. And so that led me to the 10 trends idea. And with the 10 trends idea came the realization, thanks especially to Josh Raymer, as somebody who understands how important it is to have good branding, that a podcast rebrand was also necessary. So I changed the name from the Big Game Theory podcast to the IDP Game Theory podcast. It was a really, really hard edit on the album artwork. I had to change IDP to big, or I had to change big to IDP and touch absolutely nothing else. So that was pretty easy. But yeah, I think game theory as a concept is just the idea that there are fundamental laws that govern success at things that you do, whether that be fantasy football or life in general. And
Yeah.
if you can understand what those rules are and utilize them to your advantage, you will succeed more often than those that do not use those rules. And so game theory will always be at the core of what I do. It's just being specifically tuned towards IDP, because that's what I believe my audience most needs. And I know that I also have a group of listeners who are really, really, they love the offensive side of the ball, which I understand. And they've mentioned to me as such that says, hey, I hope you continue to do stuff for offense. And I will be honest, I don't necessarily plan to. I will incorporate offense with my podcast when I can. I will share how it impacts the offensive side of the ball. But make no mistake, I still play offensive fantasy football and I still know my game theory. And so I will continue to be responding to DMs. I'll continue to interact with people on Twitter and share my thoughts on the offensive side of the ball. But, I'm a human being. I have a finite amount of time, and there are only a certain amount of things that I can devote myself to. And I want to make sure that the product that I put out is, fully baked, and it's very specific towards a specific group of audience, because if I try and make my target audience too wide, I'm not really going to cater to anybody.
Right.
And so I'm trying to be specific with what I do with this, reach a specific group of people, but simply because I'm putting forth a product that may or may not cater to a specific people group does not mean that I'm not passionate about the people that I might be leaving out.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I hear you. I've been down that road too, and it's easy to burn yourself out trying to please everyone too. And it is what it is, right? Like we gotta, if it's sustainable for us, if it's gonna be sustainable for us, it has to be interesting, fun, and something we want to do. If it's like pulling teeth for us to have to do it every week, like it's not happening, right? It's not happening. So we got to keep growing. We got to keep finding interesting stuff to do. And if that means that we lose a few listeners or readers along the way that aren't interested in whatever the next thing is we're doing, that sucks, and we're sorry, and we hope you come back, but too bad.
Yeah, exactly. There are people out there in the world that are smarter than me. I'll even throw this out there. I mentioned JJ earlier. Every episode that I've said has basically been the gateway drug to just listen to his podcast. So if you're looking for offensive game theory, like that's the show that inspired me to do what I do. So if you are looking for more of that, like go to the source, go to the guy that's infinitely better than I ever could be.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. Okay, anything you want to plug this season or at all? Anything you want to talk about? Floor is yours.
Yeah. So I, just in case I haven't made it clear, I will be doing that 10 Trends thing. I'll be doing it on my podcast feed, which is called the IDP Game Theory Podcast. I will also be writing that up as an article on Football Guys. And I will also be uploading that as a video series on Instagram and maybe Twitter too, if I feel like paying like $3 a month to be able to upload longer videos. I don't know, maybe not. We'll see how I feel with that. But at the very least, you'll have content on Twitter that you can read if that's your preferred content absorbing platform. But you can find me on Twitter at IDPEvan. You can find me on Instagram at IDPEvan. I finally have the same tag for both of them, so you don't have to try and remember two different things. And yeah, I don't know. I'll just be around. My content creation is like, a tenth of what I actually do, because the other 90% is just interacting with people out there and answering people's questions on a case by case basis. And so I'm going to try and do my best to just continue to be a positive influence in the community and be somebody that, people look to for advice or another opinion, and not, the truth, not the gospel, but just another perspective.
Beautiful, man. Love that. Okay, we'll get you out of here on this. You don't strike me as a poop is funny guy, but I've asked 16 other people, but so you're getting it. Do you think it's possible that road rage might be poop related?
I believe there is a correlation. I don't know the R squared value, but there is without a doubt a correlation between having to poop your pants so badly and having a lower tolerance for idiots on the road. And I know that to be true because there is at least one instance of it happening, and that instance is myself. So,
Ooh.
it happens very rarely, but you never know. Sometimes you drink your coffee, you have your cereal or
Yep.
whatever your preferred breakfast is, you hop in your car, you're like, awesome, I'm ready to go. Oh, and the rest is history. So yes, I think you're correct. I believe there is a correlation.
Love that. That's the first time I've heard anyone use the word correlation with that question. So
It's me. What can you expect? Let's be honest now.
That's beautiful. Well, Evan, also known as, I love Josh's nickname for you, the Young King.
I have no idea how that happened, but I'm so here for it.
I love it. He's at IDP Evan on Twitter. You guys have heard the episode. You know what he does. Evan, thank you, man. This has been awesome. I'm glad I got to know you a little bit better. We've chatted here and there, but this has been excellent.
I appreciate it, Johnny, so much. You reached out and you said, "Hey, would you like to be on the episode?" And I felt very appreciative. I was like, I didn't think of myself as somebody at that level yet, and the fact that you reached out and asked makes me really, really appreciative. So thank you very much. I'm excited to see what people think about it.
Yes, sir. All righty. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, the Young King, for coming on. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Everyone have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.